You know, the other issue, you know, you have the formaldehyde contamination in the trailers, but the location of some of the trailer parks where they put them, in the case in San Bernard Parish, where they put the trailer park was directly downwind of the Exxon refinery. And it was already, Ken Ford and his group had successfully sued under the Clean Air Act, and the judge ruled yes, Exxon had violated the Clean Air Act 2,600 times in 10 years. And all that was coming right over top of where the trailer park was. So you have the synergistic impact of formaldehyde with other chemicals in the air, and nobody's been looking at those health problems, how that might accelerate certain types of cancers or different health problems. So, and one in Baton Rouge, the Renaissance Park, was not too far away from another Exxon facility. So there's been that added insult to where they put these parks.
You had mentioned that the tracking of symptoms, the tracking of health. Now, CDC is supposed to do that. I know that they've been out to the parks, but just to comment on formaldehyde, I don't know whether they've been taking it. You've seen them, you've been there, right? So maybe you could say whether or not they look into specific health effects that people are.
We haven't seen, you know, where they're putting together a registry of folks in the trailers, and the physical problem is this is 3 years later. Some folks were in the trailers for 1, 2, 3, 6 months in 2005 and 2006 and have moved on. But we don't know what that exposure to them during that period, if it's going to have any kind of health impacts, you know, years later. And one thing that we know when you're exposed to some chemicals, there's a latency problem in that period. So we need to be able to track when people lived in trailers for how long, and then have that as part of their medical history, so doctors in the future will understand that also.
Right now, the weather is okay, and specifically the fellow Roy is taking care of Mickey.
Right.
He's a very healthy man, and he says he has to sometimes go out and sleep in the woods because he just can't tolerate it. It's right. The doors open, the windows open, not shut in like a tin can.
Yeah.
But now the summer's coming, and it'll be too hot to sleep outside. Not to mention the accelerated formaldehyde release.
Right.
What do you think about the
and, you know, the whole, you know, we raised concerns about the whole way FEMA and CDC tested trailers and the time periods they tested the trailers. Sometimes they would test trailers in the fall or the winter when they should be testing them in the summer, and because of the accelerated off-gassing with just the heat of the area. So it's an ongoing issue about how the government has not looked at these possible long-term health impacts. And in fact, in some of the government testimony and some of the emails that Congressman Waxman found internally with FEMA, you know, there was more concern about litigation than about protecting people's health.
You remember, Mr. Rosen, all he did was basically remind them of what they already knew, was already in the database, the toxicity levels, which I think Chris's organization had determined to be 8 parts per billion if you're exposed 24/7, 365 days a year,
right,
which is low. And even, what you were saying to your point, even testing it in the fall in cooler weather, I doubt that there were very many trailers that were below 8 parts per billion.
Yeah, that's been one of the problems.
So your point is that there's really no way of determining that there are obviously at least over 100,000 people that have been exposed. The exposure level is unclear. The actual health problems have not been tracked. The structures that were supposedly designed to be the permanent structure for people to move out of these toxic environments are just as toxic as what they're currently living in now. People are being 30 days from given forced out of their trailers and only given temporary housing for only 30 days, and then they're on their own. And it's and a lot of times from what we've seen, it seems that they've just been forgotten. someone comes in and says everything's being taken care of, they go away, and that's it. Is that a fair assessment of what's going on?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a public health disaster that's going to evolve over the next 5, 6, 4 years. It's just going to be people coming down with illnesses, and because we haven't tracked it, we're not going to know where it comes from. And it's unfortunately, Louisiana sort of has this history of not keeping good records, but now the state's doing this. In the 1970s, there was a EPA sent a scientist down to Baton Rouge to test their air monitoring equipment, and he thought there was something wrong with the equipment because he kept getting high spikes of volatile organics, and he finally realized it wasn't the equipment, that was what was in the air. And his statement to the press was, all we need to do is keep good health statistics to understand how these high levels of volatile organics impact people's health. And the state of Louisiana and the federal government have never been good at keeping good health statistics and looking at long-term impacts of chemicals on people and how it impacts development within young children. And it's, people have been forgotten in Louisiana.
It's almost like a don't ask, don't tell.
That's
it.
it.
They don't want to collect the data because of a focus on liability as opposed to focus on people.
That's it. They're more concerned about maybe having to pay thousands of dollars a year in litigation costs as opposed to being helpful at getting people's lives back together. And we do have a new governor, Governor Jindal. We're hoping that on environmental issues he improves over the last governor. We need his help on the formaldehyde issue within the travel trailers and other trailers around the state. And hopefully the governor and his staff will pick up this issue and move forward with it and protect people's health.
It's my understanding he's been so far pretty positive on environmental issues.
Yeah, well, so far, we're still waiting to see what happens, but he did sign an executive order that requires all state agencies to look internally and come up with a plan for greening their fleet, looking at their building energy usage, how to reduce energy usage, what their recycle policy is to look at buying and recycling materials. So the executive order is out there, and we'll see what happens with the different state agencies if they move forward with that.